Las Vegas, Nevada. Friday night, March 7th, 2008, 11:43 p.m. You're watching a 34-year-old blackjack dealer named Phong Trong shuffle cards at table 42 in the Treasure Island Casino. His hands move with practiced efficiency, the kind of fluid motion that comes from dealing thousands of hands over 8 years of graveyard shifts. Cut, shuffle, spread, bridge. The cards cascade between his fingers like water. To the 3 players sitting at his table, men in their late 30s and early 40s wearing casual clothes and nursing watered-down cocktails, he's just another dealer working the late shift. To the pit boss standing 10 feet away, clipboard in hand, scanning the gaming floor with tired eyes, this is just another routine Friday night. Nothing unusual, nothing worth noting in his shift report. What they don't see is that as Phong shuffles, his right thumb is gently pressing against the edges of certain cards, marking them, creating microscopic bends and crimps, so subtle that a camera 3 feet above the table can't detect them. So careful that even if you were standing next to him, you'd never notice unless you knew exactly what to look for. What they don't know is that the 3 players at table 42, the ones who appear to be strangers making small talk about the weather and tonight's boxing match, aren't strangers at all. They're partners, conspirators, and over the next 6 hours, using a card marking system that's been refined over 6 months of operation, they're going to win $86,000 from Treasure Island Casino. Not through luck, not through skill, through fraud, through a scam so elegant in its simplicity that it's been beating casinos for centuries. The remarkable part, the detail that makes this story worth telling, isn't the scam itself. Card marking has existed since playing cards were invented. The remarkable part is how long they've been getting away with it. 6 months of operation, dozens of shifts, 3 nights a week, sometimes 4, hundreds of thousands of dollars extracted from Treasure Island's blackjack tables, while surveillance cameras watched and recorded everything. Because the marks are invisible, because the system is patient, because nobody suspects the quiet Vietnamese dealer who's worked here for 8 years without a single write-up. Within 48 hours, Treasure Island's surveillance team will discover what's been happening at table 42. Within a week, 7 people will be arrested in coordinated FBI raids across Las Vegas. Within a year, the entire operation will be exposed as one of the most sophisticated dealer-player collusion schemes in Nevada history. But right now, at 11:43 p.m. on a Friday night, Phong Trong is dealing cards, marking aces and face cards with crimps that tell his partners exactly what's coming, and nobody suspects a thing. Saigon, Vietnam, 1974. This is where Phong Trong's story begins, in a city about to fall, in a country tearing itself apart. Phong is born into chaos. His father is a South Vietnamese army officer. His mother runs a small market stall selling vegetables and rice. When Saigon falls to communist forces in April 1975, just months after Phong's birth, his family becomes marked, not for execution, but for the slow, grinding poverty of re-education camps and forced labor. The kind of life that destroys families one day at a time. By 1989, when Phong is 15, his family joins the desperate exodus of boat people fleeing Vietnam. They spend 3 months in a refugee camp in Thailand, overcrowded, disease-ridden, but still better than what they left behind. Then sponsorship to America, Los Angeles first, then Las Vegas by 1992, following relatives who'd settled there years earlier. Phong's father finds work in a warehouse, loading trucks for $6 an hour. His mother cleans hotel rooms on the Strip, scrubbing toilets and changing sheets for tourists who earn more in a day than she makes in a month. Phong attends high school, learns English through immersion, graduates in 1994 without distinction. Not dumb, not brilliant, just another immigrant kid trying to figure out what comes next. College isn't an option. No money, no family connections, no scholarship offers. By 1998, at 24 years old, Phong needs work, real work, not the part-time dishwashing jobs he's been cycling through since high school. Las Vegas has one industry that's always hiring, that doesn't require a college degree, that offers steady employment and union benefits. Casinos. Phong enrolls in Dealer School, a 6-week course that costs $500 and teaches you everything you need to know about working table games, how to shuffle cards properly, how to manage chips, how to handle difficult players without causing scenes, how to spot cheaters. The irony of that last lesson won't become apparent for another 9 years. In December 1999, Phong graduates and gets hired by Treasure Island Casino. Starting wage, $8.50 an hour plus tips, which average another $4 to $6 per hour depending on the shift. He's assigned to blackjack, table games, 8-hour shifts dealing cards to tourists who barely understand basic strategy, who hit when they should stand, who split tens and double down on hard 17. Over the next 8 years, Phong Trong becomes exactly what every casino wants in a dealer: reliable, professional, invisible. He shows up 15 minutes early for every shift, never calls in sick, never gets written up for mistakes or customer complaints. His tip average is decent, not great. He doesn't chat much with players, doesn't make jokes or try to be memorable, just deals cards efficiently and moves on to the next hand. Management barely knows his name. To them, he's dealer number 2847, a number on the schedule, a function that processes hands and generates revenue. And that invisibility, that complete lack of distinction, is exactly what allows him to operate undetected for 6 months when he finally decides that $12 an hour isn't enough anymore. Because by 2007, after 8 years of perfect service, Flong's hourly wage has increased to $12, not $15, not $18, just $12 an hour, which means working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, he makes $24,960 annually before taxes. Meanwhile, a single blackjack table generates approximately $50,000 to $80,000 in profit for the casino per month. The table Phong deals at makes more money in a weekend than he earns in an entire year. That realization, the understanding that he's generating enormous wealth for people who see him as disposable, changes something fundamental. If the casino views him as replaceable, why should he feel any loyalty to them? Most people think card marking requires obvious alterations. Ink marks, scratches visible from across the table, crude bends that make cards look damaged. That's amateur work. That's what gets you caught in minutes. Professional card marking, the kind that beats casino surveillance for months, is invisible to anyone who doesn't know exactly what to look for. The technique Phong uses is called crimping, or edge work. Microscopic bends in specific corners of specific cards. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just enough pressure from his thumb during shuffles to create a tiny crimp, maybe a 1/4 millimeter deflection in the card's edge. An ace of spades gets a crimp on the top left corner. A king gets crimped on the top right. A queen gets marked slightly lower on the right edge. These bends are so subtle that high-definition surveillance cameras positioned directly above the table can't detect them. The cards look perfect on video, but from 18 inches away, sitting at the table, if you know what you're looking for, those crimps are obvious. They catch light differently. They create tiny shadows. They tell you exactly what card is coming before it's even turned face up. How does it work in practice? Blackjack is fundamentally about information. The dealer has one card face up, one card face down. Players make decisions based on incomplete information. Hit or stand, double down or play conservatively. Every decision involves calculated risk. But if you know what the dealer's whole card is before making your decision, the game transforms completely. If you know an ace is coming on the next hit, you adjust your play accordingly. If you know the dealer's down card is a face card, giving them 20, you don't waste money hitting a hard 16. Card marking provides information that shouldn't exist. Perfect information. The kind that turns a game where the house has a 0.5% edge into a game where players can have a 5%, 8%, sometimes 10% advantage. Over hundreds of hands, that edge generates massive profits. Phong's technique during shuffles is elegant. As he riffles cards together, his right thumb naturally rests against the edges. Completely normal. Every dealer does this. But as specific cards pass through the shuffle, aces and face cards primarily, his thumb applies just slightly more pressure, maybe an extra half pound of force for a fraction of a second. The card bends microscopically, invisible on camera, invisible to pit bosses watching from 10 feet away, but visible to trained eyes sitting at the table. The system requires perfect coordination between Phong and his players. He marks cards during shuffles without anyone noticing. The players read marks during gameplay without being obvious. And everyone bets in patterns that don't trigger surveillance algorithms. Too much consistency, always winning when marked cards appear, and the casino's systems flag the anomaly. Too many big wins in compressed time frames, and pit bosses start watching closely. The key is balance. Win enough to generate real profit. Lose occasionally, deliberately sometimes, to maintain the appearance of normal variance. Play for hours to establish baseline betting patterns. Then exploit marked cards when the situation is optimal. But Phong can't execute this alone. He needs partners, players he can trust absolutely, people who understand the system, who can read subtle marks without making it obvious, who won't panic under pressure, who won't get greedy and blow the operation by betting too aggressively. In September 2007, after months of planning and practice, Phong begins recruitment, carefully, through connections in Las Vegas's Vietnamese community. He's looking for specific people, gamblers who already understand blackjack, who won't need extensive training, people who need money money, but aren't so desperate that they'll make stupid decisions. Individuals who can sit at a blackjack table for 6 hours without drawing attention. His first recruit is Tan Van Le, a 41-year-old man who owns a Vietnamese restaurant in downtown Las Vegas. Phong has known Tan casually for years. Same community, same background. They're not close friends, but familiar enough that approach doesn't seem random. What Phong knows, what makes Tan the perfect recruit, is that the restaurant is failing, declining revenue, rising costs. Tan is drowning in $60,000 of business loans he can't repay. One night after his shift, Phong finds Tan at the restaurant, sitting alone at a back table, reviewing bills and bank statements. The conversation starts casual. How's business? How's the family? Then Phong shifts.
You play blackjack sometimes, right? I've seen you at the tables.
Tan nods warily.
Sometimes.
Why? How would you like to play with an advantage? The kind where you know what cards are coming before they're dealt.
Tan's expression changes. He understands immediately what's being offered.
That's cheating.
Only if you get caught. And I've been doing this for 2 months already. Nobody knows. Nobody suspects.
This is a lie. Phong hasn't been doing anything yet, but claiming existing success makes the proposition seem safer, more proven. Tan looks at the bills spread across his table, the red numbers, the overdue notices.
How much money are we talking about?
Depends on how much you're willing to bet. On a good night, 20, 30,000, maybe more. We split profits, 60-40. You take 60% because you're the one taking the real risk.
Why do I get more?
Because if this goes wrong, you're the one sitting at the table. You're the one on camera. I'm just a dealer following procedures. If they catch you, I claim ignorance. Say you must have been cheating somehow, but I never noticed.
Tan thinks about this for a long moment. The ethical calculation, the risk versus reward, the difference between continuing to drown slowly in debt versus taking one big risk that might solve everything.
When do we start?
The second recruit is Chao Li, a 38-year-old professional gambler who exists on the margins of Las Vegas's underground gambling scene. Small-time poker player, occasional baccarat hustler, the kind of guy who knows how to move money without attracting attention, who understands the rhythms of casino surveillance, who can sit at a table for 10 hours and blend completely into the background. Chao brings discipline. Most gamblers, even when they're cheating, can't resist the urge to bet big and win fast. But Chao understands patience. He knows how to grind, how to play for hours, win gradually, lose strategically, and walk away with consistent profits that don't trigger alerts. The third recruit is Phong's cousin, Min Trong, a 29-year-old construction worker who's been struggling since the 2008 housing market collapse. Min isn't a gambler, barely knows how to play blackjack, has never set foot in a casino except to meet relatives for dinner, but he's family. And in Vietnamese culture, family obligations run deep. When family asks for help, you help. Phong teaches him the basics over 3 weeks. How to read the crimps, how to bet, how to act like a casual recreational player rather than someone executing a mathematical system. By October 2007, Phong has his team, 4 people total, 1 dealer, 3 players, and a system that's about to make them wealthy or destroy their lives. October 12, 2007, 10 p.m. The operation begins on a Friday night, when Treasure Island is crowded enough that one blackjack table doesn't stand out, but not so packed that pit bosses are hyper-vigilant. Phuong Trong is working table 42, his regular assignment. He's been dealing here for 3 years. The pit boss barely glances at him anymore. Just another dealer, just another night. Tan Van Le arrives first, sits down at table 42 like any other player, buys in for $2,000, pulling 20 $100 bills from his wallet and sliding them across the felt. Phuong counts the cash, calls out,
"Changing 2,000.
and receives approval from the pit boss. He pushes $2,000 in chips across to Tan. Black $100 chips, red $5 chips for tipping. Tan arranges his chips and places his first bet, $25, a conservative opening, nothing that draws attention. Phuong begins dealing. The first hands are completely straight, no crimping, no marking. This is establishment phase. Both men need to act normal, establish baseline behavior, create the appearance of routine gameplay. Tan wins some hands, loses others, tips occasionally. Standard recreational player. After 20 minutes, Chao Li sits down at the same table. Position 3, 2 seats away from Tan. Buys in for $5,000, a larger amount, but still within normal parameters for a Friday night. His betting is more aggressive, $100 to $300 per hand. The pit boss watches for maybe 30 seconds, sees nothing unusual, makes a note on his clipboard, moves on to check other tables. What the pit boss doesn't see, what the cameras positioned above the table can't detect, is that Phuong has just begun crimping cards during his shuffles. The first marked card is an ace of hearts. As Fwong riffles the deck, his right thumb presses against the top left corner. Brief pressure. The card bends microscopically. When he deals the next hand, that ace appears face down as Tan's second card. Tan already has a 7 showing, 18 total. Against a dealer's face-up 6, basic strategy says stand, but Tan can see the crimp on the top card remaining in the deck. It's marked as a king. If the dealer's whole card is low, giving them only 16 or 17, that king could bust them. Tan stands on 18. The dealer flips their whole card. 5. 16 total. Dealer must hit. Draws the marked king. 26. Bust. Tan wins. To anyone watching, this looks like a normal hand. Standard play. Lucky outcome. But it's not luck, it's information. Over the next hour, Fwong marks 6 more cards. 4 aces. 2 face cards. His players adjust their betting patterns. When unmarked cards appear, they bet minimally. When marked aces show up in favorable positions, they increase wagers to $500 or $1,000. The correlation isn't perfect. They deliberately lose some hands, even when marks suggest they should win, creating the appearance of normal variance. By midnight, Tan is up $8,000. Chow is up $12,000. The pit boss makes another note but doesn't seem concerned. Players have hot streaks. It happens. At 12:30 a.m., Min Trong sits down at table 42, buys in for $3,000. Now all 3 players are at the same table. This is the optimal configuration. Maximum information extraction. Fwong's crimping becomes more frequent, marking 10 to 12 cards per shoe. His players adjust bets accordingly. Small when information is unclear, large when marks indicate advantage. The session continues until 3 a.m. At the end of the night, the 3 players have collectively won $43,000. Tan leaves with $18,000, Chow with $17,000, Min with $8,000. They cash out at different cages, at different times, ensuring no pattern emerges of 3 players from the same table cashing large amounts simultaneously. Fwong finishes his shift at 6 a.m., clocks out, drives home to his apartment. Later that day, the 3 players meet him at a coffee shop in downtown Las Vegas. They count the cash, divide it according to the agreed formula. Fwong takes 40%, $17,200 for one night's work, more than he'd earn in 7 months of dealing. The system works, the math works, and nobody at Treasure Island suspects anything. This pattern continues for the next 5 months, 3 nights a week, sometimes 4, 6 to 8 hour sessions. By December 2007, the operation has extracted approximately $240,000 from Treasure Island. Fwong's cut is roughly $96,000, more than he'd earn in 4 years of legitimate dealing. The players have split the remaining $144,000. Everyone is getting rich, everyone is getting comfortable, and that comfort, that growing sense of invincibility, is what ultimately destroys them. In January 2008, Fwong makes his first critical error. He gets greedy. Instead of maintaining the disciplined schedule of 3 nights per week, he starts running operations 4 nights, sometimes 5. The increased frequency means more hands, more data for surveillance systems to analyze, more pattern opportunities for algorithms to detect. It also means more exposure, more shifts where Fwong is dealing and his known associates are playing, increases the statistical correlation that analysts look for. The second mistake is recruitment expansion. In February 2008, Fwong brings in 2 additional players, a friend of Min's who works construction, a distant cousin of Tan's who needs money. These new recruits aren't as disciplined as the original 3. They bet too aggressively when marked cards appear. They win too consistently. They don't lose enough strategically to maintain cover. By mid-February 2008, Treasure Island's automated loss prevention systems are detecting anomalies. Table 42 is showing unusual results, not catastrophic losses that would trigger immediate emergency response, but statistical outliers that warrant investigation. Players at that table are winning approximately 3% more than mathematical expectation over thousands of hands. 3% doesn't sound significant, but in blackjack mathematics, where the house edge is typically 0.5% in the casino's favor, a 3% player advantage is enormous. It suggests systematic cheating. On February 18, 2008, a surveillance analyst named Marcus Chen receives a routine work order.
Review Table 42 gameplay. Check for dealer errors or player advantage play. Determine cause of statistical variance.
Marcus has been in casino surveillance for 6 years. He's reviewed thousands of hours of footage. Most investigations reveal nothing. Equipment malfunctions, normal statistical variance. Occasionally, you catch someone counting cards or trying to add chips after seeing their cards. But mostly, surveillance work is tedious. Hours of watching people play games. This investigation starts the same way. Marcus pulls footage from Table 42, focuses on shifts where the variance is highest. February 10th through February 17th, 8 days of footage. He watches at double speed, looking for obvious problems. Nothing stands out initially. Dealers following procedures, players betting within normal ranges. Then Marcus slows down the footage, watches Fong's shuffles frame by frame, and there, visible only when you're looking specifically for it, watching at quarter speed, he sees it. Fong's right thumb pressing against card edges during shuffles. The pressure is so brief, maybe 1/4 of a second, that at normal speed it's completely invisible. But frame by frame, it's obvious. Card crimping, dealer-player collusion, one of the oldest scams in the book. Marcus's heart rate increases. This is big. This is federal crime big. He immediately pulls extended footage. Every shift Fong has worked over the past 6 months, and the pattern becomes undeniable. The same group of players rotating through Table 42 when Fong is dealing. Betting patterns that correlate with marked cards. Wins that consistently exceed mathematical probability. By 4 p.m. on February 20th, 2008, Marcus has compiled a comprehensive report, video evidence, statistical analysis, player profiles. He submits it to his supervisor. Within an hour, it's escalated to the casino's head of security. By evening, the Nevada Gaming Control Board is involved. By the next morning, the FBI has opened a case. But here's where it gets interesting. Treasure Island and the FBI could arrest Fong and his team immediately. They have video evidence of card crimping. They have statistical proof of systematic cheating. But defense attorneys could argue the crimps are accidental, the result of normal wear and tear on cards. Coincidental pressure during routine shuffles. What they need is incontrovertible proof. They need to catch the operation in the act, with crystal clear video, with betting patterns so obvious that no jury could acquit. The decision is made. Let the operation continue. Add additional surveillance. Build an airtight case. Then execute coordinated arrests. Over the next 2 weeks, 6 additional high-definition cameras are installed above Table 42. Cameras that can capture microscopic detail. FBI agents review the operation's patterns and identify the optimal moment to move in. March 7th, 2008, 10 p.m. Fong arrives for his shift at Treasure Island, parks in the employee lot, clocks in at 10:07 p.m., heads to Table 42. Everything feels normal. He has no idea that in the surveillance room above, 6 FBI agents and 4 Nevada Gaming Control Board investigators are watching his every move. At 11:43 p.m., Tan, Chow, and Min sit down at Table 42. They buy in with large amounts. Fong begins dealing, and in the surveillance room, every screen is focused on his hands. At 11:58 p.m., Fong begins his shuffle. His right thumb presses against an ace of spades. The high-definition cameras capture it in perfect detail. The microscopic crimp, the deliberate pressure. In the surveillance room, an FBI agent speaks into his radio.
We have visual confirmation. Dealer just marked an ace. Prepare to move in on my signal.
But they don't move yet. They wait. They watch the players adjust their bets based on marked cards. They document the entire sequence. Over the next 45 minutes, Fong marks 8 cards. His players win $37,000. The correlation between marked cards and player bets is perfect, undeniable. At 12:47 a.m., the signal is given.
Execute arrests.
March 8th, 2008, 12:49 a.m. Fong is mid-deal when he sees 6 men in dark suits approaching Table 42. His hands freeze. He knows immediately. Behind him, security guards are closing off exits. The lead FBI agent shows his badge.
Fong Trong, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit casino fraud.
The handcuffs close around his wrists. Cold metal, final. As agents escort him through the casino, past shocked tourists and stunned dealers, Fong thinks about the $96,000 he made. 6 months of work, 6 months of risk, all ending in handcuffs and federal charges. By 3 a.m., all 7 participants have been arrested. By morning, they're in federal custody, facing charges that carry 10 to 20-year prison sentences. The plea deals come quickly. Fong accepts 7 to 14 years. Thon gets 6 years. Chow gets 8. Min gets 4. All agree to pay restitution totaling $1.2 million to Treasure Island. Fong served 7 years. Released in 2015. Deported to Vietnam. His $96,000 was seized. His life destroyed. Thon lost his restaurant and family. Chow was banned from every Nevada casino. Min changed his name and disappeared. 7 lives destroyed for money they mostly couldn't spend before getting caught, because that's how casino fraud works. The house doesn't always win during the game, but they always win in the end.